The sun hung low over the long stretch of desert land as Nayeli walked slowly toward the small frontier town. Her feet were tired, and her clothes were dusty from the long journey. But she kept moving. She had been traveling with her family earlier that day, but during a sudden windstorm, she became separated from them. The blowing sand made it impossible to see. And before she realized it, she had wandered far from her group. When the wind finally stopped, she found herself alone and unsure which direction they had taken. She knew they would be searching for her, but she also knew she needed water, rest, and a safe place to wait until she could find them again. Ahead of her, the wooden buildings of the town looked small but welcoming. Smoke rose from chimneys, and the faint sound of people talking traveled through the warm air. Nayeli hoped someone there could give her a little help, maybe water, maybe directions, maybe just a quiet place to sit. She stepped into the town slowly, hoping not to startle anyone. She knew that many towns near her homeland were not always friendly to strangers, especially strangers from another culture. But she carried hope in her heart. The streets were busy. Horses walked past, pulling wagons filled with supplies. A group of children ran across the dusty road, laughing and chasing each other. A couple of shopkeepers stood outside their stores, sweeping dust off their wooden steps. Everything felt different from her home, but also peaceful enough to give her courage. She approached a trading post with a small wooden sign above the door. Inside, she saw shelves filled with food, tools, cloth, and other goods. The cool shade felt comforting after walking under the sun for so long. Nayeli tried to smile as she entered, but the store owner, an older man with a white beard, looked at her with confusion. She nodded respectfully, trying to communicate without words. She pointed to a small pouch at her waist, then to a few supplies she needed, mostly food, and a small bottle she recognized as medicine. Her family kept medicine in traditional ways, but she knew this would help her younger brother, who had recently become sick. She did not take anything yet. She only tried to show her intention to trade. But the owner misunderstood her gestures. He thought she was reaching for the items without permission. He spoke quickly in English, a language she only understood a little. Nayeli tried to explain using soft gestures, but the more she moved her hands, the more the shopkeeper became uneasy. His voice grew slightly louder, and he stepped back toward the door, calling for someone outside. People gathered quickly. A few townsfolk peered inside, confused by the sudden commotion. Nayeli stepped back, worried that her attempt to communicate had been taken wrongly. She wanted to tell them she meant no harm. She wanted to show them she was willing to trade. But the language barrier stood like a strong wall between them. Two men entered the shop, followed by the deputy. The deputy was tall, serious-looking, and clearly in a position of authority. He listened to the store owner's hurried explanation. Nayeli only recognized a few words, but she understood from their expressions that they believed she tried to take something. Her heart pounded. She shook her head gently, pointing again to her pouch, trying to show she carried something to trade. But they did not seem to understand. They spoke among themselves, nodding as if they had already decided what happened. The deputy looked at Nayeli with a calm but firm expression, motioning for her to follow him outside. She obeyed because she didn't want to cause trouble, and because she still believed she could somehow explain the misunderstanding. Outside, a small group had gathered. The town was not cruel, but people here were cautious. They did not know Nayeli's intentions, and misunderstandings easily grew when communication failed. The deputy spoke to her again, slowly, as though she understood English fully, but his words were still unclear to her. She only caught bits and pieces. Something about rules, something about questions, something about investigation. Before she fully understood what was happening, they brought her to a wooden structure in the center of town, the Pillory. It was old, built long before she arrived here, likely used more as a symbol of order than real punishment. Still, her heart tightened as they guided her toward it. She wanted to protest, to tell them it was all a mistake. But the more she tried to communicate, the more confused everyone became. She did not fight. She did not shout. She allowed them to place her in the pillory because she hoped cooperating would help them see she was no threat. The wooden boards closed gently around her arms and neck. It didn't hurt her, but it held her in place, making her feel exposed and helpless. Her breath trembled. Not from fear of the people, but from the worry that she would not be able to clear her name. As she stood there, the townsfolk returned to their usual activities, though many glanced her way now and then, whispering among themselves. Some looked curious, others concerned, and a few looked uneasy. She tried to avoid their eyes, still hoping someone would understand her soon. That was when Cole Hartman rode into town. Cole was a cowboy who traveled often, working from ranch to ranch, helping people wherever he could. He had a calm way about him, and a habit of noticing things others overlooked. As he rode his horse down the dusty street, he saw the crowd gathered earlier, and now saw the woman in the pillory. Unlike others, he did not jump to conclusions. He slowed his horse and watched quietly for a moment. Nayeli lifted her eyes just slightly and saw him. She did not know who he was, but she saw something gentle in his expression, something different from the confusion she had faced earlier. Cole climbed down from his horse and walked toward her with slow, respectful steps, making sure not to alarm her. He noticed she looked tired, not dangerous. Her clothes were dusty, not threatening. Her eyes were full of worry, not anger. Something about her situation felt wrong to him. Cole approached one of the townspeople. "What happened?" he asked softly. They repeated the story they had heard, that she tried to take something from the store. Cole didn't accept it so easily. He looked at Nayeli again, noticing she carried a small pouch and seemed to be trying to communicate earlier. He stepped closer to her, keeping his voice gentle. "Ma'am, can you hear me? Are you all right?" he asked. Nayeli looked at him, unsure if she should speak. But his tone comforted her. She nodded faintly, trying to say she wasn't dangerous. Her voice was weak from stress and from standing in the sun. But she whispered a small word in her own language, hoping he might understand. He didn't understand the word, but he understood the emotion behind it. Cole took a canteen from his belt and held it out toward her lips. She hesitated, but he offered it calmly, giving her time to trust him. She drank a small sip of water, feeling relief run through her dry throat. "It's all right," Cole said softly. "I don't think you did anything wrong." The sun was lowering, and shadows grew longer across the town. Nayeli felt exhaustion growing heavier, but Cole's presence gave her a small spark of hope. She tried again to speak, forming soft sounds, pointing gently toward the trading post, then to her pouch. Cole watched her gestures closely. She wasn't acting like someone who had taken something without permission. She was acting like someone trying desperately to explain herself. Cole looked around at the people standing nearby. "I'm not sure this is right," he said calmly. "She looks more confused than guilty. Maybe there's something we're missing." Some townspeople shifted uncomfortably. They weren't unkind. They had simply misunderstood the situation and didn't know what else to do. Nayeli felt tears gather in her eyes, not from shame, but from tiredness and the weight of not being understood. She whispered a faint plea, her voice shaking, hoping that at least one person would listen. Cole stepped closer, kneeling slightly so he could hear her. She whispered something again, this time mixing a few broken English words with her own language. The words were soft but full of meaning. "I am trapped," she said slowly. Cole's expression changed, not in fear, only in concern and determination. He nodded slowly, as if making a silent promise. "Don't worry," he said gently. "I'll find out what really happened. I won't leave you like this." Tindar. In that moment, under the warm desert sky, a quiet hope began to grow between two strangers. One trapped in misunderstanding, the other willing to uncover the truth. The sun slowly climbed higher in the sky, spreading warm light over the town square. Even though the morning breeze tried to cool the air, the heat kept growing with every passing minute. Nayeli stood quietly in the pillory, feeling the sun on her skin. She tried to stay calm, but her body felt heavier with each breath. Her arms were tiring, and her throat was still dry, even after the small sip of water Cole had given her. Cole watched her from a short distance, thoughtful and concerned. He could not understand why the deputy and the townspeople had acted so quickly without properly listening to her. Misunderstandings in frontier towns were common, but this one felt especially unfair. Something inside him refused to let him walk away like other travelers might have. He felt a responsibility to help her, even if he did not know her name yet. The deputy approached Cole with a firm expression. "You're new in town," he said. "Don't get involved in things you don't understand." Cole kept his voice calm. "I'm not trying to cause trouble," he replied, "but she doesn't look like she meant any harm." "She took something from the store without permission," the deputy insisted. Cole glanced toward the trading post, then back at Nayeli. "Are you sure she understood your words? She doesn't speak English well." The deputy paused for a moment, as if he had not considered that. "We questioned her." Cole gently shook his head. "Talking and truly understanding are not the same." His voice held no anger, only reason, which made the deputy visibly uncomfortable. Nayeli watched them quietly, her eyes shifting from one man to the other. She couldn't hear every word clearly, but she could tell Cole was trying to help. The thought gave her a small warmth inside, something bright in a day that had felt dark and confusing. A few townspeople gathered nearby again, whispering among themselves. Some looked sympathetic, others looked unsure. One woman stepped closer with a bowl of water and gently placed it near Nayeli's feet. "I think she's just lost," the woman said quietly. Her voice was not loud, but even that small kindness made Nayeli's heart soften. Cole approached Nayeli again, this time with more purpose in his eyes. He spoke gently, choosing simple words. "I want to help. Can you understand me?" Nayeli nodded slightly. "Can you tell me what happened?" he asked, keeping his tone soft and patient. He knew she might struggle with English, so he watched her gestures carefully. Nayeli took a breath. She felt nervous but tried her best. She pointed toward the store, then slowly tapped her pouch, trying to show she had come with something to offer. She made slow, careful movements so he would understand. Cole watched each gesture closely. He pieced the motions together, imagining what must have happened. He could see she had tried to trade, not take anything. Her hands moved with thoughtfulness, not fear. Her eyes held sincerity, not guilt. "You tried to trade something?" Cole asked slowly. Nayeli nodded quickly, relieved that he understood even a little. Cole exhaled, now convinced she was innocent. He looked around the town square, noticing the curious faces watching. He felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He knew he had to do something more than talk. "Just wait," he told her softly. "I'll find out the truth." Nayeli nodded again, though her eyes reflected worry. She had tried to explain herself earlier too, but no one had understood. Still, she trusted Cole more than anyone else here. Something about his calm voice made her feel less alone. Cole walked toward the trading post and entered the small shop. The owner was restocking shelves, but he looked up when Cole stepped inside. "Sir," Cole began politely, "I want to understand what happened earlier." The shopkeeper sighed. She walked in, pointed at things, and started moving toward the medicine shelf. "I thought she was taking without paying." Cole leaned against the counter. "Did she take anything?" "No," the owner admitted, "but she acted strangely." Cole raised an eyebrow. "Strangely how?" "She used hand gestures," the owner said, shrugging. "I didn't know what she wanted." Cole nodded. "Did she offer anything to trade?" The man hesitated. She pointed to her pouch. "But I didn't understand what she meant." Cole sighed softly. The misunderstanding was becoming clearer by the minute. The shopkeeper had simply felt confused and acted out of worry rather than certainty. Cole could not blame him entirely. Communication mistakes happened often in these towns. But putting Nayeli in the pillory without understanding her was still unfair. Cole returned to the square. Nayeli watched him with hopeful eyes. Seeing her hopeful expression gave him even stronger determination. "I talked to the store owner," Cole said softly so she could hear him. "I believe you." Nayeli let out a slow breath. Relief washed through her, but she still felt trapped physically and emotionally. Cole looked around the square again. The sun was growing hotter, and he knew she could not stay in the pillory too long. He approached the deputy once more. "She didn't take anything," Cole said calmly. "Even the shopkeeper admits that." The deputy crossed his arms. "Maybe not. But she caused confusion." Growled. Cole took a breath, trying to stay patient. "Confusion is not a crime." The deputy looked at him silently, unsure how to respond. "We should release her," Cole continued. "You're holding an innocent woman." A silence filled the space between them. Some townspeople murmured softly. A few nodded in agreement. Others looked unsure. But the deputy did not answer yet. He was thinking something he had not done earlier when the misunderstanding began. Nayeli watched all of this from where she stood. Her heart pounded with hope and nervousness. She whispered a quiet word in her own language, something like a prayer for strength. Cole turned back to her, noticing her exhaustion. The heat made her face look tired. Her arms were beginning to ache. He stepped closer and offered her more water. She drank it slowly, grateful for the cool liquid. "You're doing well," Cole said softly. "Don't worry." His voice felt like shade on a hot day. A child approached the pillory, holding a small loaf of bread. The girl hesitated, then offered it to Nayeli. Cole helped by gently lifting the bread closer so Nayeli could reach it. The child smiled shyly before running back to her mother. Nayeli felt touched. Small kindnesses felt like a great blessing. Cole decided he needed more than gentle talk. He needed to gather clear answers. He began speaking separately with witnesses, the people who had heard the commotion earlier. A few said they only saw confusion, not wrongdoing. Others admitted they had not seen her take anything. Slowly, more people expressed doubt that she had done anything wrong. The deputy watched the shift in the crowd, growing uneasy. As more people questioned the situation, he realized he could not rely on assumptions anymore. Cole's calm questioning brought a sense of clarity that had not been there earlier. Nayeli stood still, watching everything unfold. The sun now touched the top of the buildings, casting longer shadows. She noticed Cole walking from person to person, speaking kindly, never raising his voice, always seeking truth. It was unusual for someone to show so much patience for a stranger. Her eyes softened as she watched him. She did not know his name, but she knew he was the reason she still had hope. Finally, Cole returned to her side. He leaned close so she could hear him clearly. "I believe the truth is becoming clear," he said warmly. "People are starting to understand. I won't stop until you're free." Hearing those words made Nayeli's eyes well up again, but this time with relief. She whispered, "Thank you," in soft, broken English. She wasn't sure if she said it perfectly, but he understood. The deputy approached once more, this time with a thoughtful expression instead of certainty. He wasn't ready to release her yet, but he was no longer sure of his earlier judgment. Cole could see doubt in his eyes, doubt that would eventually lead to the truth. The evening wind began to move gently through the square, carrying the smell of dust and warm earth. The day had been heavy, but something in the air now felt lighter. The misunderstanding had not been solved yet, but progress had begun. For the first time since morning, Nayeli felt the weight on her heart ease just a little. Cole stood beside her, determined and patient, ready to uncover every detail until she was free. Morning light softened the sky as Cole prepared himself for another day of uncovering the truth. He knew Nayeli had spent the entire night in the pillory. And even though the deputy had allowed someone to place a blanket around her shoulders to protect her from the cold breeze, Cole still felt uneasy. She didn't deserve to be there. She deserved fairness. She deserved understanding. As the sun rose, Cole walked toward the small trading post again. He wanted to speak to the owner with a calmer mind, now that the confusion from yesterday had settled a bit. When he pushed the wooden door open, the little bell above it jingled softly. The shopkeeper looked up from arranging canned goods on a shelf. He seemed tired, maybe from thinking about the misunderstanding all night. Cole offered a polite nod. "Morning." The shopkeeper nodded back. "Morning." Cole approached the counter. "I want to ask again about yesterday," he said gently. "I'm not angry at you. I just want to understand everything clearly." The shopkeeper sighed, rubbing his forehead. I was confused, he admitted. She pointed at things, made gestures. I didn't know what she wanted. I panicked because I didn't understand. Cole nodded. She wasn't trying to take anything without permission, he said. She tried to trade. She wasn't trying to do anything wrong. The shopkeeper looked guilty now. Maybe I overreacted, he said quietly. But she didn't say anything I could understand. I didn't know what else to do. Cole thought for a moment. Would you mind showing me exactly how it happened? He asked. Maybe I can understand her gestures better. The man agreed and reenacted the movements. He pointed at items the way Nayeli had. He mimicked the moment she had touched her pouch, which he had misunderstood as suspicious. Cole watched closely. And suddenly, something clicked. She wasn't taking it, Cole said softly. She was trying to offer a trade. That's how her people often communicate. When language is difficult, they show what they can give in return. The shopkeeper slowly nodded. Understanding began to sink in. I see, he murmured. I didn't know their ways. And she didn't know yours, Cole added. They both stepped outside. The shopkeeper looked at Nayeli with a heavy expression, realizing she had suffered because of a misunderstanding. Do you think the deputy will release her? The shopkeeper asked softly. I'll make sure she gets justice, Cole replied. As they stood there, a wagon rolled into town, carrying several travelers. Among them was a man who wore a badge that identified him as an interpreter who traveled between native communities and towns. He often helped groups communicate so trading could be peaceful. Cole saw him and immediately felt hope rise in his chest. He walked over and introduced himself. Sir, we need your help, he said. There's been a misunderstanding. Someone here can't explain herself, but you might understand her. The interpreter nodded with interest. Who is she? He asked. Cole pointed to the center of the town square, where Nayeli stood quietly, her eyes tired but still hopeful whenever she saw Cole nearby. The interpreter approached slowly. Nayeli lifted her eyes in surprise. She had not expected to see someone who spoke her language in this place. He greeted her kindly in her native tongue. The moment she heard familiar words, her whole posture softened. She felt a flood of relief, as if someone had opened a door she had been trying to push open alone. Cole watched closely as the interpreter and Nayeli spoke. She explained everything, how the dust storm had separated her from her family, how she came to town seeking a small amount of food and medicine for her sick younger brother, how she tried to trade using gestures because her English was limited, and how frightened she felt when her signs were misunderstood. The interpreter listened patiently. When she finished, he turned to Cole and the deputy, who had walked over to hear the explanation. She meant no harm, the interpreter said firmly. She was trying to trade fairly. Everything she did was respectful. She wasn't trying to take anything. A murmur spread through the small crowd that had gathered. Some people looked ashamed. Others nodded in understanding. A few placed their hands on their hearts, feeling sorry for the hardship she had gone through. The deputy's face softened. His pride seemed to fall away, replaced by honest regret. I didn't know, the deputy said quietly. I thought she didn't want to cooperate. She couldn't explain. Cole reminded him gently. That's different from refusing. The deputy nodded. He looked at Nayeli with sincere eyes. Tell her I'm sorry, he said to the interpreter. The interpreter translated the apology. Nayeli nodded softly, accepting it. She carried no anger in her face, only relief that someone finally understood her. But Cole wasn't done yet. He wanted every detail to be clear. He and the interpreter went to the trading post together. They asked Nayeli to explain exactly how she meant to trade. She opened her pouch and revealed carefully made items, small, hand-woven pieces, beads, and a little ornament carved from smooth wood. These were traditional trade gifts, valuable in her culture, but unfamiliar to the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper stared at them with wide eyes. I didn't know, he whispered. These are beautiful. Nayeli spoke softly to the interpreter, who translated. She says these items take many hours to make. She brought them as fair trade. Everyone listening grew quiet. They realized how peaceful and honest her intentions had been. She had not come to take anything. She had come to offer something precious. The deputy took a deep breath. "We need to release her immediately," he said, his voice gentle. Cole felt relief wash through him. He knew justice would be served now. Nayeli watched as the deputy approached her. The interpreter explained what was about to happen. As the wooden boards were lifted and she stepped free, her arms tingled with relief. She inhaled deeply, feeling her freedom fully. For a moment, she simply stood still, letting the fresh morning air touch her face. The fear she had carried began to melt away. She rubbed her wrists gently, and Cole stepped closer, making sure she was steady. "You're free now," he said with a warm smile. "You did nothing wrong." Nayeli looked into his eyes with grateful softness. She said a few words in her language, and the interpreter translated. "She says thank you for believing in her." When no one else did, Cole felt a gentle warmth in his chest. "You're welcome," he said simply. But there was still one more truth to uncover, a truth that deepened the meaning of everything. The interpreter asked Nayeli about the medicine again. She explained that her younger brother had been sick for some time. Their traditional remedies were helping, but they needed something extra that the trading post carried. When this was translated, the townspeople grew quiet again, realizing she had endured a night of discomfort while trying to help someone she loved. The shopkeeper stepped forward. His voice was soft and full of guilt. "Tell her she can take the medicine and supplies she needs," he said. "No trade needed. There are apology." Nayeli hesitated. She did not want charity, she believed in fair exchange. But the interpreter explained that it was not charity. It was the town's way of saying sorry for misunderstanding her. After hearing that, she agreed. Cole watched her carefully, making sure she was all right. She seemed stronger now, her eyes clearer, her posture straighter. Freedom had restored her spirit. The deputy stepped toward Cole. "Thank you," he said. "You did the right thing. You made us slow down and think." Cole shook his head gently. "She deserved fairness. That's all." As the morning sun warmed the town, a sense of understanding and peace settled over the square. The truth had come out. Nayeli was free. And Cole felt certain that her story was far from over. The final stage of his journey began quietly, almost like the calm after a long storm. He had gone through so many emotional ups and downs that now, when life finally slowed down, he felt unsure how to behave. Sometimes silence feels too loud, especially when a person has lived through years of noise, pressure, and uncertainty. That is exactly how he felt, caught between relief and confusion, not knowing whether to relax or to stay alert. But slowly, as days passed, he started understanding something important. Everything he had experienced had shaped him into a stronger, wiser, and more patient person. Life had not been easy, but it had been meaningful. The challenges he survived had given him a deeper understanding of himself. He now knew what he wanted in life, what he should avoid, and what truly mattered. Even though his journey had been difficult, it had taught him lessons that no book could teach. He learned that people change, life changes, and situations transform. But the only thing that must stay steady is one's heart. He understood that he had to keep hope alive, even when nothing made sense. Every morning, he woke up and reminded himself that progress did not always look dramatic. Sometimes progress looked like waking up with a peaceful mind. Sometimes it looked like choosing patience over anger, calmness over worry, and kindness over frustration. And sometimes, progress meant simply refusing to give up. He began focusing more on his future. He created new routines, set small goals, and worked on them consistently. At first, these goals looked too simple, like waking up early, eating on time, or giving himself a few minutes to breathe and think. But these small acts slowly built a new foundation for his life. One of the biggest changes in him was his mindset. Earlier, he used to overthink everything. He used to fear the unknown and rush toward solutions. But now, he learned how to trust the process. He understood that not everything must be figured out immediately. He realized that sometimes, good things take time, And the best things often arrive when a person is patient enough to wait. He also found himself reconnecting with people he had distanced himself from. Not because he needed them, but because he now understood that life becomes easier when you share your thoughts with others. A simple conversation, a supportive message, or even a smile from someone could make a huge difference in a person's day. He learned that kindness is not a weakness, it's a strength that very few people have. One evening, while sitting alone, he felt a deep sense of calm in his heart. The kind of calm that arrives only after a person has accepted their past and opened the door to a new beginning. He realized that he no longer felt heavy inside, his thoughts were lighter, his heart was steadier, and his dreams looked more reachable. That night, he decided something important. He would no longer allow his past to control him. He would no longer keep himself stuck in old emotions. He would move forward with dignity, grace, and quiet determination. As months passed, he became more organized, more focused, and more disciplined. He made a plan for his future not because he feared uncertainty, but because he wanted to build something meaningful. He started working on new opportunities, learning new skills, and improving his personality. People around him noticed the change. Some admired it, some got inspired by it, and some simply wondered how he managed to transform so much. But they did not know the silent battles he had fought, the lonely nights he had survived, or the courage he had shown by not giving up. His transformation did not happen in one day. It happened little by little, choice by choice, thought by thought. He grew more confident. Not loud confidence, but the quiet type, the kind that comes from knowing your worth and respecting your own journey. He began to trust himself more. He made decisions clearly and without hesitation. He stopped doubting his abilities and started believing in his potential. He also learned an important truth. Peace is something you create, not something you find. Peace is built by choosing what's right for your heart, even if others don't understand it. Peace is choosing your mental well-being over unnecessary drama. Peace is walking away when something disturbs your calm. And most importantly, peace is loving yourself enough to protect your own energy. His relationships improved too. Not because others changed, but because he changed his approach. He communicated better, listened more, and understood people more deeply. He no longer reacted quickly. Instead, he took time to understand situations before responding. This gave him a sense of control over his emotions that he never had before. One day, he visited a place that used to hold heavy memories for him. He stood there for a moment, expecting the old pain to return. But it didn't. Instead, he felt strength. The place that once made him feel weak now reminded him of how far he had come. He had grown past it. He had healed. He smiled softly, not because everything was perfect, but because he was finally free from the feelings that used to trap him. He returned home with a lighter heart. That day became a symbol for him, a mark of closure, a mark of growth, a mark of a new beginning. As time moved forward, he continued building his life with patience. He worked on his dreams step by step, celebrated small victories, and accepted setbacks with maturity. He no longer rushed toward success. He understood that consistency is more powerful than speed, and stability is more valuable than sudden results. His personality became more balanced. He was strong but gentle, ambitious but patient, determined but calm. He wasn't perfect, and he didn't try to be. He simply tried to be better than he was yesterday. That was enough. People started approaching him for advice. They felt comfort in his words because he spoke from experience, not theory. His journey had given him wisdom, and he used that wisdom to guide others. He realized that helping people did not take anything away from him. In fact, it gave him purpose. Slowly but surely, he began to see his future more clearly. He saw possibilities he had never seen before. He saw hope in places where he once saw fear. He understood that his story was not ending, it was just beginning. He learned to enjoy the small joys of life, like the sound of morning birds, the taste of warm tea, the smile of a stranger, or the peaceful walk during sunset. He understood that happiness is hidden in small, simple moments. In the final stage of his journey, he made peace with everything: his past, his mistakes, his fears, his regrets, and even the people who once hurt him. Forgiveness did not mean forgetting. It meant freeing himself from the chains of negativity. He stood tall, not because life became easier, but because he became stronger. And when he looked back at everything he had gone through, he did not feel sad anymore. He felt proud. Proud of surviving. Proud of healing. Proud of growing. His story became a reminder that no matter how hard life becomes, a person can rise again with patience, hope, and determination. In the end, he realized that the true success of life is not about wealth, status, or achievements. True success is inner peace. True success is emotional maturity. True success is becoming someone you yourself are proud of. He walked into his future with a steady heart and a confident smile, ready for new experiences, new lessons, and new beginnings. His journey was not about reaching a perfect destination, it was about becoming the best version of himself along the way. And that was his real victory.